आप इनके परिवार को इत्तला कर दीजिए।
बस अमित ही जो थे।
Hi. I am Pratikshya Mishra, and you're listening to Do I Like It, a Quint production where we review anything and everything under the sun. And in this episode, I will tell you if I like Uunchai. If your best friend came to you and I was like, oh, for my birthday, I want to climb Mount Everest, what would you say? Honestly, if you ask me, if I was the person being asked to in this situation, I would say yes, for sure, because, dosti yari, that's what friendship is for. You say yes to all these things. But in reality, I remember that I went to Kedarnath and the only memory I have from that place is just in a blanket, struggling to breathe, actually struggling, just trying to eat a mango to stay alive. My nose was red, my hands were freezing, and I like the cold, okay? So I actually like the cold. So why do in Uunchai these old age protagonists, protagonists that we haven't seen before a lot in cinema, because it's always these young people who are the heroes and the heroines and the protagonists. Even the OTT is changing that in a wonderful way. But yeah, why do these old protagonists decide to climb Mount Everest? For friendship? Pretty much. So do I like Uunchai? Before I get into that, I want to tell you that you can check out our other episodes from this series as well as other podcasts from the Quint on our website or wherever you get your podcast fix. Uunchai is made by Suraj Barjatia. The one thing I remember about Suraj Barjatia is that when I was a kid, I would see these films on TV and my grandparents would be like, "Arey, dekho, it's a family picture, yaar. It's a family entertainer. Family ke saath baith ke dekh sakte hain. Family. I was like, okay, calm down." And they were right. They were family entertainers. A lot of his films, like Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, are all very family oriented. It's a nuclear family hai. As long as hum sab saath hain, everything is going to end well, even if it devolves into chaos in the middle. I expected Uunchai to also be like that, but it's surprisingly not. Uunchai talks about how sometimes distance helps. It's not necessary for a family or for a relationship or a marriage or anything at all to work ki hamesha log chipak ke saath try kare, yes, we can do this, hi, yeah, we can do this. That's not important. Sometimes distance helps, and that was very refreshing to see. पर अब सूरज बजाता की फिल्म्स में इमोशन नहीं होगा तो कहाँ होगा? There is a lot of emotion in this film as well. The emotional core is very strong. The first half of the film is gorgeous. It's typical Barjatia film. There are so many colors. There's the blue and the yellow and the very, very different and gorgeous shades of red that you've come to expect from Barjatia films. And then it shifts to like the blues and the whites. Kyunki, well, baraf ka pahad hai, obviously. It's Mount Everest. This is not the only tonal shift in the film, though, and I'll get into that later. What is happening in the film is that there are 4 friends. One is Amitabh Bachchan's Amit, Boman Irani's Javed, Anupam Kher's Oman, Danny Dengzompa's Bhupen. They all decide ki Mount Everest we'll climb. Good decision, I guess. Even though everyone's like, oh, have you seen your age? And they're like, oh, no, old is gold. We've got this. But then Bhupen passes away, and all the rest of the friends are like, "Acha, aakhri iccha, last wish of our friend, we have to do this," and they decide to climb Mount Everest anyway. And with them go Neena Gupta, who plays Javed's wife Sabina, and Sarika, who plays Mala Trivedi. Both of these actors, though, Neena Gupta and Sarika, complete this film. Like, all the characters come together to kind of build the film to become what it is. But these two really just have some of like the most adorable and heartfelt scenes in the film. Like I was talking about, the tonal shift that happens. It goes from like, "Arey, dosti yari, everyone's happy, everyone's great," to just this harrowing journey to the peak of Mount Everest. Amitabh Bachchan is, of course, a star, and all 4 actors, actually, the main actors, have great chemistry together. Amitabh Bachchan is such a versatile actor. You put him in anything and he'll kind of mold himself into it, from Piku to Pink to Uunchai, for instance. Anupam Kher is also a very strong addition to the cast because he is honestly the one who's having the most realistic reactions to this entire situation. Parineeti Chopra, even though she is on screen with just these veterans of cinema, holds her own surprisingly well for the most part. Even Boman Irani kind of carries the comedy of the film and the heartfelt scenes very well. Who did surprise me, though, was Danny Dengzomppa. And it's not because he's not a great actor. I have really appreciated his work for years now. But Bachpan say, I've kind of seen him in these as a Kancha Cheera types role from Agnipath. He's the Bollywood villain, and he was great at that, don't get me wrong. But that's what I saw him as all the time, which I think is a sentiment that a lot of people share. But in this film, he's so charming and he's so disarmingly just so cute that I was so surprised and it was refreshing and I loved that. Manoj Kumar Khatoi as the DOP kind of gives you a wonderful glimpse into the Mount Everest that they're climbing, into the mountains around as well. The Mount Everest journey is harrowing. It's very tough. It's literally one of the toughest treks ever. A lot of people kind of die, while they're trying to do this. But before we get into the stress and the trauma of it all, he uses these wide angles to show you these beautiful peaks and they're amazing. And then he shifts to close-ups when you need to see how each person is faring. The bleeding lips, their lips are chapped, their skin is dry, they're struggling to make it upstairs, but they still want to. Upstairs, why did I say upstairs? Upstairs to what? If there were stairs, Mount Everest wouldn't be that tough, would it? My bad. Struggling to make it to the peak. But they don't give up. And I guess that's what the story is about. Perseverance and love and friendship, and it all comes through. The only issue, if I had to pick one, would be that the second half becomes a little draggy because they kind of careen off into these side tracks away from the main story. कि अच्छा side में ये हो रहा है character के साथ, ये हो रहा है character के साथ. So maybe those cuts would have helped the film a lot. But the one thing about Unchai is that it understands human relationships. It's not this kind of ideal scenario कि ऐसा हो रहा है वैसा हो रहा है. Because can you imagine what a different film हम आपके हैं कौन would have been if Prem and Nisha were like, screw all of you, okay, you do your thing, we are leaving, we are in love, हम अपना देख लेंगे, तुम कर लो. What a different film that would be. And I like that this nuance has come out in Unchai कि हर चीज़ ऐसे नहीं होती हंसी खुशी ha ha ha, family films can mean this as well. And that's really nice to watch. I think Unchai would be a film that really works with a large audience क्योंकि ठीक है सबको अच्छा लगता है यार, ये थोड़ा emotions and everything. It's not my genre personally. It's not something I would go for just directly because my genre is more thriller and horror, which, well, it has had its adverse effects on my mental health, but we'll not get into that. Maybe, a film like this, a film or two like this sometimes helps with that. So finally, again, to answer the age-old question, do I like Unchai? I actually really did. I cried so much. I cried so much that the couple sitting next to me looked at me with a lot of concern. But yeah, it's a good film. I think you should watch it, even with its flaws. I think Suraj Bajatia's return to the screens is something that people should actually go out for. That was all for this episode. Thank you for listening. Do I Like It is a Quint production executively produced by Ritu Kapoor and Shaili Walia, hosted by me, Pratikshya Mishra, produced and edited by Pratik Liddu, with music from Unchai and BMG Production. See you next time.
You were listening to the Quint's podcast.